Welcome to Night Shadows. I'm Stewart Best, where the paranormal is normal, where that which you thought you knew, you didn't, and where the future can be known if you know exactly where to look.
Well, good evening, everyone, and thanks for tuning in and listening. We have a major alert here because of news that came in fairly late, which is why I was late posting for the show. But basically what's happening is, according to inside sources anyway, Russia is massing warships off the Syrian coast. Possible mass attack upon Idlib planned after numerous ceasefire violations. What's the latest you got, Larry, on this? It doesn't sound good.
No, it doesn't actually, and that's what's interesting too is the fact that it appears, and one source appeared to be from Damascus, and I haven't been able to confirm it, but they're reporting that not only is Russia massing their warship off the Syrian coast and possibly for a missile attack on Idlib, and of course, if you remember, Idlib is the location where all the U.S.-backed rebels and the Turkish groups were that was fighting with Assad, and remember they kind of came to a ceasefire there for a little bit to let them escape. Well, they didn't escape. The Russians are still in the area, and there is reports from Damascus, as I reported, that Syria and Russia are moving troops and possibly a group of forces to do a sudden attack on Idlib, and that, according to sources, could bring immediate warfare because, they're protected by the U.S. and Turkey. So there we are.
Don't we have U.S. troops also in Idlib as well?
My understanding is that there is forces inside Idlib that were supporting. They were ground support or, intel support, communications, etc., for the rebels and all the rebel forces in Syria. That's where they had backed up to defend, and the Russians began to bomb it. If you'll remember, Syria was moving troops, and then suddenly, because the U.S. moved some stuff and fired some artillery, out of our base there close, they backed off. But apparently there's been a change, and I did hear and confirmed by Fox News that it's been reported now that the 11/11 meeting between Trump and Putin is off. We don't know what that means. We don't know who called it off. We just know that it appears to be off, and at the same time, we're having not only the Chinese and the Yellow Sea on a war alert, and their aircraft probing ours, but we're also now today had Black Sea NATO exercise going on, and Russian aircraft are now probing and trying to outmaneuver the U.S. naval planes and also the NATO forces. So there's a lot going on, and to me it's very disconcerting that Trump and Putin are not going to meet now. That means there's been a change of some kind in the way this dynamic was moving.
Well, it's kind of interesting, too, about this thing from Turner. According to media reports, Russia has sent, and I can't pronounce these names, but there's one frigate with long-range caliber cruise missiles to the Mediterranean, and it will be joining then 1, 2, 3, 4 more frigates, a landing ship, that's kind of interesting, and a missile corvette ship. So most of these, they could, how do I word this? They could all but take out everybody in Idlib. And I do remember Putin told Trump or John Bolton, you get your people out of there. Remember that?
Oh, yeah, we've been warned.
And more than once we've been warned. I think Lavrov warned us as well. Get your people out of there. Well, of course, a lot of people don't understand. We have no standing under international law of being in there in the first place. Whereas Russia was invited by Assad to help defend Assad's regime. So now it appears, and according to this article, the move by the Russian Navy appears to be in response to the constant ceasefire violations committed by the jihadist rebels inside the Idlib buffer zone. Excuse me. A military source in Damascus said this afternoon that the Russian naval buildup was conducted in response to the ceasefire violations and refusal of armed groups to leave the buffer zone. So this looks like this could, this is that Sochi agreement, ceasefire, that's not working evidently. So the agreement it claims here is falling apart because the rebels and the terrorists inside Idlib refuse to comply with the agreement provisions. So now maybe Russia has decided, all right, we've warned everybody, and now we're going to go in and do it. What do you think? It looks like it's almost immediate.
Yeah, that could be exactly what's going on. And by the way, I did find a report today on Debka that Russia has warned Israel today not to get involved, and they would consider any Israeli involvement or air attack during whatever's planned to be a provocative measure and endangering Russian troops, and there would be consequences. So now you've even got Russia warning Israel to stay out of whatever this is building and completely out of it. Now, at the same time, Stewart, as a sidebar, we've got Iran on, in a war mode, nationwide movement. And today, because the sanctions went into effect today, November the 5th, as Trump said, Iran has come out and said that is possibly an act of war, and that Iran refuses the sanctions and will break the sanctions immediately. And on top of that, get this, I just found out a while ago from a Fox News report that guess who is in Iran right now shouting death to America and death to Israel? Farrakhan himself. Farrakhan from the U.S. What do you think?
Well, of course, he's a Muslim, and he hates the America the way it is. And he has a lot of, how do I word this so I don't get in trouble like I'm supporting Farrakhan, because I'm not. But he's well-versed in what is going on behind the scenes, and his hatred for America is pretty well known. Kind of like, who was that Obama's pastor? Death to America. And
Wright. I think his name was Wright.
Yes, Pastor Wright. So they're all in this kind of together, even if they don't. And Obama has been seen with Farrakhan, and all these big leaders have been seen with him. So, it's kind of like the whole thing is just a play. The Bible prophecies are our playbook, and we're watching a play like we're sitting on the moon watching all this play out. And, of course, Satan is at the head of the whole thing. And so some of these people know exactly what they're doing, but I would have to say most of them probably haven't got a clue as to what they're doing. But I notice here in the headline, Iran leader says war situation after U.S. sanctions are applied, launches nationwide military drills. So this reminds me of World War II and the start of it because of the sanctions we did against Japan. And if you can bring a nation down through sanctions, and already Iran's in a lot of trouble financially, eventually they get to a point where what do they got to lose by going to war and pulling out all the stops? And we do have Daniel 8, and we have Daniel 11. I don't exactly know how they all intermingle, but we've got to be, how do I word this? We've got to be extremely close. The timing is about right. I mean, here we have elections that are very, very divisive. We have the border situation. And as I understand it, some of the people are already here, crossing over. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's the latest reports I saw off the border this morning was that hundreds are beginning to arrive and cross over the border ahead of the so-called caravans, unquote. And also, remember, Trump has also issued, or actually through DHS has issued the report to the border residents that we cannot protect you as this begins. And at the same time, Stewart, there are also reports that, we've got armor moving towards the border, which may indicate more than just a border issue. So there's a lot of stuff coming together right now, November the 5th, and moving towards 11/11.
Yeah, I think there's something to all this timing, and I really do believe we're very much on the border of time of Jacob's trouble, and exactly how this is all going to play out, I guess, remains to be seen. But it really does look like we may be headed for a major war here, and not going to be fun when it occurs, because this thing, according to Isaiah chapter 17, if that's what comes first, it's almost overnight. You're just going to wake up one morning and it'll be on the news. And from there, I guess, who knows whether we get involved in a world war or not. Oh, by the way, any more news on this solar flare? I noticed it was building, and I think I heard somebody say, maybe it was you, that it was even building today a little bit.
Yeah, they indicated it was building. It was a 6 earlier today, which was a lot higher than they really expected, and they said it was increasing tonight. They're still watching closely. They're, not giving much data, and like I say, space weather's not posting very much, but some alerts that I get, kind of an insider deal, they're really concerned about some of this.
Okay, the other thing is I wanted to bring up, we don't have much time, but I just wanted to give an alert. Now, I don't know if this is true or not. Bankers, the globalists, if they lose the election November 6th, they plan to begin causing a financial collapse starting in November 8th, with the actual collapse really beginning, I guess, on November 12th, and then war by November 28th. So that's just another little piece of the cog, and they can do it overnight, folks, by a derivative collapse. I don't have time to get into that, but they can pull this overnight. And if they want to get rid of Trump, that'd be one of the easiest ways to do it. Anything else you got there, Larry, before we shut down?
Yeah, we've got this election starting in the morning, and there's already reports out that the Democrats are trying a cyber stealing of the voting. So this may not be over tomorrow night. This may go into the next few days, just like all these other situations that seem to be arising. It may take a week. We may never know who won.
Yeah, I think that's probably more accurate if we don't get involved in the Civil War beforehand. Everything's coming to a head, folks. Heads up, and thank you for tuning in and listening. Watch that situation over there in Syria. This could escalate very, very rapidly. And we're full of diversionary stuff here. Everybody's looking inside. Anyway, good night, everyone. Thanks, Larry.